Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. This is your Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Enjoy the show.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. This is the preview show, game week 10. We're going to preview all the games in the league. We're going to do Bournemouth, Man City, Liverpool, Brighton, Forest, West Ham. The bottom six all meeting each other, which is Ipswich, Leicester, Southampton, Everton, Wolves and Crystal Palace. And then Sunday's games, Spurs versus Villa, Man City, Chelsea. And the main event, as we all know, is Newcastle away. And that's tomorrow. Lunchtime, breakfast time, really, nighttime, bedtime. Yeah. Dan, we'll talk to the host in a minute, but
unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
We're chopping this off already.
He is trying to. We spent the last. Fergus time. Well done. He's learned how to use a keyboard. He's getting better at this. He's really getting better at this. This is all training for you to be the host. You know that. We spent 24, 48 hours together. A long time in the car on the way up to Preston. 7 hours. I didn't have road wage once, did I?
Mate, 7 hours, an hour was too long with you, but that 7 hours in that car with you was horrendous. I only wish I had so much money I could get me on a helicopter or something, but bloody hell, that'll have to do. But no, it was a very appreciated journey, even though Fergus was full of road rage as always, swearing, anger. God, what we asked for.
Honestly, by the time we got to Sandbach and we still had 2 hours to go, we're only like 50 miles away. Trevor's ringing us up from the Catholic Club going, I'm only having another 5 pints. Oh, Christ, forgive me, a baby Guinness. He even developed an Irish Catholic accent. He was in there that long. Honestly, it was unreal. And he kept on ringing me up.
For those of you that know Fergus and know he's the Block 5 bully anyway, he's road rage and he's the bully of the roads now, the amount he swears and shouts at people. But if only you went the right way, Fergus, we'd have been there a bit quicker.
Well, I've told him before, Dan, he won't read the sat-nav, will he? He always goes the wrong way. He will not listen to us when we try and tell him. Dan, you are my hero of the week. 7 hours in the car with the Fergus man. I'd have got out and gone home.
It was actually 11, 12 hours by the time we got home. So, yeah. And then shared the same Airbnb. Mind you, a funny story about the Airbnb, and Dan, we will bring you in a second. Trev, talk to us about the Airbnb and the squatters.
Yeah, well, do you know what? Because Fergus ignored the sat-nav and went the wrong way again, I was up on the train and I was at the Airbnb a good hour and a half before these boys. So, gone to the Airbnb and there's this lad working in the front garden, this bloke, and he says to me, "Oh, are you a guest?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a guest." He said, "Oh, I've already given your friends the keys. They're in the house." I said, "They don't want to be, mate, because I just spoke to them. They're an hour and a half away yet." He said, No. Your 2 girlfriends have got in the house. I said, honestly, mate.
Listening.
Honestly, mate, they're nothing to do with us. So he knocks on the door and these girls come out. They've already got their dinner in the oven, these girls, in this Airbnb. And he says, you girls, you've not booked tonight. And they went, we have. And he looked at me and I said, don't look, here's the booking. Don't look at me, pal. So anyway, he makes the girls double check the booking and they had booked for the correct date, only a year ahead. They'd booked for 2025. So they had to take their dinner out the oven, get themselves all packed up and get off again. He did say to me, mate, there's plenty of rooms in this house. Would you be willing? The bloke did say to me, lads, there's plenty of room in this house. Would you be willing to let the girls stay in one of the rooms?
To be fair, Dan was open to the idea, but that's
happily why,
married men, you know.
Well, that's why I told him no, because Dan was coming. I thought, there's no way I'm letting Dan loose in here. Not a chance. So anyway, it all worked out right. They packed up. I went down the pub to wait for Fergus and Dan and Kyle and we were Kirk. Sorry, Kirk. And pleasantly surprised when 5 pints cost me 20 quid. So I was a bit worse for wear by the time these boys got there. It was very pleasant indeed.
Dale, you'll know what Trev's like after 1.5 baby Guinnesses and a pint. Yeah, he was.
But
As he
I
said,
also know what you're like in a car, though, Ferg. I've experienced it, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It's like you've got your own take on a sat nav. It's like, if honestly, you can update your sat navs to have a different voice. If I could update a sat nav to have any voice, it'd be you. How would it sound, Dan? So it'd be
Turn
like,
fucking left.
No, it's like, to be sure. Keep the next exit onto the main road.
Listen,
all of a sudden, Dan's idea of a helicopter don't sound too bad.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Let's have a quick roundup on what we thought of the Preston game. Arsenal 3, Preston 0. Lovely ground, really, really nice. People up there that we met, the little time we had with them were really, really nice. The Catholic club, as we said, was also good and cheap. Dale, what do you think of the game? Just 1 or 2 sentences.
As expected, in all honesty. I think even a kind of second string team has enough to beat them. I like the fact he brought the youth in. I think a lot of people are excited to see Wanyeri start, and he didn't disappoint.
Dan?
You said keep it short in a sentence, so I did.
Yeah, I thought it was a comfortable win, right? Never thought we looked out of a comfort zone at all. To be honest, surprised that he played as many of the first team players as he did. A few people have said maybe that's because a few of them need minutes, like the likes of Timber, but I can't see how Saka needs minutes. But yeah, maybe because he's been out for a couple of weeks that they're trying to make sure everyone's fit. But the main thing for me was just the fans, the amount of fans that travelled up there, 5,600 of us, getting up there by blooming boat, helicopter, train, a lot, wherever they can get up there. It's a brilliant showing from the fans, and that's what them sort of cup days for me are all about. The big away ends, and yeah, that's what I love from the big cup ties away from home.
Trev, I'll hand over to you shortly, but your thoughts on the Preston game and waiting for the draw in the bar afterwards, and we just wanted an away fixture at Spurs or whatever, didn't we?
I can't believe we've got a nice home fixture and we were all disappointed. Look, right, it was an expected win, and I thought we played really well. I didn't expect to see quite so many of our first team on the field, but unlike Dan, I wasn't too disappointed. I remember reading a piece about Saka once not too long ago, and I was saying Saka just wants to play. He'll tell you if he's injured, but when he's feeling all right, he just wants to play. And I don't know. I would imagine Arteta said to him, "You fancy an half?" And he went, "Yeah, all right, I'm going on." So I was very happy. The fans, our Arsenal fans, are just amazing. There's 5,600 was the official figure. I'm confident it was well over 6,000 because there was loads of Arsenal fans mixed in with the Preston fans. They were perfectly behaved. Stopped singing all night. Just proud of the fans, proud of the players, proud of the club, proud of the beer prices. Just a bit ashamed that my mates left me up there, belly no mates, for a couple of hours, but it didn't matter, to be honest.
Which mates? Listen, let's talk. Let's talk about the preview games. We run this league that we all put our predictions in all week, every week. Let me just take that banner down. And we've got the Guns and Yellow Ribbons Prediction League week after 9 weeks. So going into this week, we got our prediction for this one. Dan, I'll hand over to you on this. But again, let's probably jump more towards the end slide because I know that's the one you want to wind me up on.
I love to wind you up on whatever slide we're on, Fergus. But we've been a few weeks behind on showing the table, so there's been a bit of a catch up, and obviously after you privately cried to me on the phone about the deductions, we've decided to take them all out now. So there's no deductions, there's no excuse for you, Fergus. So if you're bottom of the table, it's all because you don't know anything about football. But we'll get to there and see where you are at the end of the table. But if you want to keep going, I've done a bit of a catch up at the end of it, Ferg, and you can see exactly where we are right in the last slide from every single game week to now. So it's been a bit of a up and down one. I think if Alex wasn't missing a couple of game weeks, he'd have been pushing right at the top with me and Dale. But it's the part-timer Dale that's at the top at the minute. So if he keeps up there, I might have to get some deductions back for Jamie O'Hara on
What can I say, mate? If I keep going at this rate, you're going to need a helicopter to come catch me right up there. So I'll keep looking down. You lot keep looking up. You'll learn them next.
Don't you worry, mate. I'll be on top of that chopper on that helicopter, and I'll be coming up there to take you down. But a bit further down, Fergus, what's going on, mate?
It's all right. Somebody's got to hold up all you lot. I'm just strong. I'm not quite as strong as Sam was last weekend, but you know, I'm nearly that strong holding you lot up. So yeah. And Alex, pull your finger out. Make sure you get your results in. I know you're busy tonight, and happy birthday for last night. But missing 2 weeks. Poor form. You need to keep these other two, Dan and Dale's, because you know what their egos are like. You need to keep them in check. Trevor, I'll hand over to you from here now, mate.
Yeah, wait a minute, because you see that league table, I'm never going to be at the top because I put the results down as I'd like them to see for the Arsenal. I don't give a damn who wins the game and goes on a table. I always choose the best result that suits the Arsenal. And so we're not having a good run recently, but we'll come good. You see, we'll come good. Right, anyway, look, right, we got to get talking about this weekend. I'll tell you for why. Because my alarm's set for 4:30 in the morning. So it's my bedtime straight after this podcast. By the way, the Arsenal under-21s have just took the lead at Chelsea. Perfect, eh? Perfect timing. Right, so we're going to talk about this week's games, aren't we? Right, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a good week this week. I think it's going to be one of them weeks, boys. You know, once in a blue moon, you see a week's worth of results and you think, by God, that's a good set of results for the Arsenal. That really suits us, you know. And I think, thinking, this is going to be one of them weekends, right? So the first game tomorrow is Newcastle v the Arsenal. Well, we obviously don't talk about that first. We leave the best till last. So listen, I think this game we're going to talk about is going to be a really, really interesting game because Bournemouth v Man City. Bournemouth have already beaten the best team in the country at home this year, haven't they? You know, so if they can beat the best team in the country at home, surely they can get a bit of a result against Man City, can't they? We'll go to Dan first.
I don't know, Trev, to be honest with you. I look at this game and I think on any other given day, City will still be much, much better than they are. But they have got a few injuries, if I'm totally honest. And Bournemouth are still a pretty decent side. Especially at home, I think I wouldn't back against Bournemouth sort of putting in a decent performance. And it all depends on me on what team City put out with the number of players they've got out at the minute. But I've actually gone for a 1-1 draw here. Maybe it's a little bit more out of hope, a bit like what you said about the results that we want to see rather than the results we actually think. But it wouldn't surprise me if there was a little mini upset from this game, and this is one of the games where City potentially drop points, because if they are lower numbers, I still think Pep will protect a few players and rotate ahead of the Champions League. And that's always going to be his main focus. So if there are a few injuries, it only favours maybe a few points dropped at the weekend.
Yeah, I get that. But do you know what, Dan, right? I mean, Man City they've been nicking games, haven't they? They've been winning them all, but they've not been winning them comfortably. And Bournemouth, as I said, I think they've been playing really well, much better than I thought they would this season. So I think they're in with a right shout, Bournemouth. Dal, what do you reckon, mate?
It's probably why I'm top of the league, boys, because although I'd love that to be the case, I can't see it happening. I think back. I think back to the game when we played them. I think we hit them on a really good day, and a day when we were really poor. I think you could play that game 100 times over again, and we beat them every time. But I think City have got way too much for them, truth be told, even with their injuries. Although Pep did say they've only got 13 fit players. So that'll be interesting to see what he does with the team with the Champions League coming up. Yeah, exactly that. I mean, he was saying it was a bit when Arsenal were complaining about injuries. Apparently, he was saying that it's part of the game, right? Well, guess what, Pep? The shoe's on the other foot now. It's part of the game. So although I'd like to see a Bournemouth win, I can't see it. I've gone for a 3-0 Man City win.
Well, do you know what, though? You're right, though. It is. I mean, who gives us sympathy? Nobody. So there's no way Pep's getting anything out of me.
Nothing.
Now, listen, Ferg, right? I'm just going to feed you a line here, right? Bournemouth City. They've played each other 14 times in the Premier League. Bournemouth have never got a point, let alone a draw. They've never got a point. City have won every game. Does it change, Ferg?
45-7 is the stat. That's the stat. And Bournemouth have lost 11 Premier League games when they've started top of the league. So no, it doesn't change a thing. I think City aren't flying at the minute. I think Bournemouth are okay at home. And as we found, it's a small, tight ground. It's very, it's very intimate. Fans and as Dan knows, how close you can get to officials and Matt Stewart's and everything else. It's up.
Well, you
close
can't. The steward stop you.
I can't remember.
Up
My
close and
memory-
personal. I would normally have gone with a higher score for City, but I can see Bournemouth getting a goal. But I still think City beat them, so I've gone for 2-1 for City.
So see, I've gone the other way here, boys. I've just got it in my head that Bournemouth defended pretty well against the Arsenal. City ain't at full strength. And it wouldn't surprise me if Bournemouth nick a goal and win 1-0. I've gone for a 1-0 win to Bournemouth. I know that's me heart talking more than me head, but that's what I've done. Bournemouth to nick it, 1-0, hopefully. But I'd take a draw. Anything that makes sure they don't get, maximum points, right? So later on in the day then, I don't know whether I'm interested in this game or not. Ipswich v Leicester. Ipswich try and get draw. Normally get a draw at home, don't they? Got lots of draws. Leicester have started playing a little bit better. I can't really split Ipswich and Leicester. We'll go with Dal first, Dal. You're on mute.
I am indeed. You're right. It's one of those games where normally I'll have some sort of thought or opinion to say, well, I hope this happens. I hope this happens. I'm hoping for a shed load of goals in this. It's like because it makes for more entertaining after the game. Really don't see much going on, to be fair, though. Leicester can score goals. We know that. We've seen that. Ipswich have shown that they can and are capable of putting in a performance. So I can't see them not scoring at home. I've gone for a 1-1 draw here.
Yeah, I can see that. I fancy that as well. But Ferg, Ipswich have had all these draws. Have they been a bit unlucky not to get a few more points, Ferg?
No, not really. I think the only game that they really played well against that I've seen, if I recall, I think that they played okay against West Ham. Was it a game last week or the week before? They played quite well, but a draw, and they're going to pick up points here and there. They're not good enough away from home, and they're definitely not good enough at home to maintain their status in the Premier League. I think the last time these two teams met was in the Championship, and it was a draw there. I don't think it's going to change very much between the Championship and the Premier League. I've gone with the same as Dale, 1-1.
Do you know what? I'm going to chuck my score in here now because it'll be interesting to see what Dan says. For almost exactly the same reasons as you boys have said, I've gone for a 1-1 here as well. I can't split them. I think they're just going to maybe just match each other up, and maybe they might be too scared of losing and not go for the out-and-out win. I don't know, but
I would have got a Leicester. Trev, I would have got a Leicester win, but Leicester just seem they're not just getting it together at the minute, are they?
No. Well, no, they're not. Is that because they're not playing to the best of their abilities, or is that because they're just not good enough? So 3 draws, Dan. Fed you a line there, mate. Are you changing the tune?
Oh, I absolutely am. So I'll tell you what, if this was later in the season, I think I'd back what you guys have said and go for a draw, because I think the longer the season goes, the more we get towards the end, the more this gets a cagey game, because I think whoever wins this game has a higher chance of staying up. But Ipswich's performance recently haven't been too bad, but I just don't see enough quality there. And if you ever want a reason to look out for this game, Trev, look at Leicester's last 5 games, right? Last 5 games they've played: 5-2 Man United, 3-1 Forest, 3-2 with Southampton. There's a 1-0 win there against Bournemouth and 4-2 against Arsenal. There's been goals in those Leicester games. They've been up and down like a blooming helicopter, them games. And I think it will be the same sort of thing in this game, if I'm totally honest. I've got a bit more conservative with a 2-1 win to Leicester, but I think there could be 4 or 5 goals in this if it starts a bit more on the front foot. So I've gone 2-1 to Leicester. Wouldn't surprise me if there's a few more. I just feel like Leicester have got more quality than Ipswich at the minute. It also surprised me with Liam Delap being on the bench for the last Ipswich game, because normally most of the goals come through him. So I don't know if there's a problem there, if he's had a little knock or what the reason was. But if Ipswich want a chance, he's got to start.
Yeah, fair enough. So it's going to go one way or the other. There's going to be a sack full of goals, or it's going to be a ball draw. Ferg, I just want to chuck a stat at you on this game now. I know you've got them there; you can see them. But Leicester have had the fewest shots on target in the Premier League this season. They've only had 26 shots on target all season, but they've scored 13 goals. They're scoring with 50% of their shots on goal, which is higher than anyone else in the league. How's that working, Ferg? I can't get my head around that stat.
Just bring your Coke and your Bacardi.
Are we having a
Hang on,
party?
lad. We're not that sort of guy.
Are we having a party?
Sorry, Bacardi and Coke. That's what I meant.
Do you know what, right? Do you know what? When I fed him that line, I thought I was thinking to myself, go down that route, but be careful what you're saying. It totally went out the window. Totally went out the window.
Before we move on, guys, let's side the very same Ipswich side that drew with Aston Villa 2-2 the other week. They put a very good Villa side and took a point off them at home.
In fairness, that's an interesting point because, as we all know, Dan hates Villa and I rate Villa. You know, so that was a very good point. And maybe they have got a performance in them, but have they got enough?
I think that was the game I was thinking about where they were slightly unlucky. So yeah, you are right.
Yeah. Just on that quickly, Trev. It's funny because last week I actually said on here it's about time I give Villa some credit, and I said I still think they're going to drop points at some point, but I'll go for a Villa win, and they went and drew. So I was right. I should have just stuck to my opinion, not let you bully me into going for a Villa win.
I've never bullied anyone in my life, Daniel. I'm as soft as they come. So you can knock that on the head, my son. Don't start. We all know how you treated Alex last week, right? Yeah, but listen, I want to move on now, right? Because I want to spend some time looking at this next game, right? Because Liverpool v Brighton, I think this is going to be a cracker. I can see a surprise on the cards here. Brighton are more than capable of getting a result at Liverpool, I reckon. More than capable. Ferg, do you agree?
Yes, but I also agree that Brighton are more than capable of getting a result anywhere. They're probably the standout. Well, alongside Chelsea to a certain degree, but the standout surprise of this season. They've been growing and growing in confidence. They've lost player after player, season after season, manager and manager after every season. Yet again, whatever is it? It's not Tom Bowley. I don't know who is the owner of Brighton. Is whatever they're doing there with their money ball and their research and stuff that they're doing. They keep on churning out great players. Ferguson is back fit again, the young Irish guy. He's back playing. I think he get a goal maybe last week, or he definitely featured and played quite a bit of the game. Liverpool, what Slot's doing is decent. I thought we were the better side against them over the 90 minutes last week. He inherited a great foundation of a team from Klopp. He plays more conservative football than Klopp did, and they won't leak as many goals. But that being said, I think they could easily cancel each other out. And I've gone for Liverpool 2, Brighton 2. No Opta stats there, Dan.
Oh, okay.
Well done, Opta, Ferg. Well done.
Do you know, for me, the game could come down to two forwards here because I didn't think Salah played very well against the Arsenal last week, but he's certainly been flying this season. But at the same time, Danny Welbeck's knocking them in for fun, so we could see goals at either end. Dan, who's going to pull this off, mate?
Unfortunately, I think this just is another banker for Liverpool at home at the minute. I think if ever they're going to drop points, it will be away from home. I still think at home in front of their crowd, it's a very difficult place to go for most teams. Brighton will go there and be brave. They always do wherever they go. And I think you have to be brave when you go to Anfield if you want to get something from those games. So if ever there's a team that could do it, it's going to be a team like Brighton. I just feel like at the minute, Liverpool's confidence and the good run they're on will just keep going for a little bit longer. I don't know how much the game in midweek is going to have an effect on this game. You know, when you play the same team back to back, maybe it does have a little bit of an effect. And Brighton obviously lost the one midweek, but they had very, very changed squads in midweek. So I'm expecting it to be a very, very different game. It's also at Liverpool as opposed to at Brighton.
Yeah.
I just still think with Liverpool, long term, their midfield isn't good enough. But in the short term, when their forward line is on form, and you just mentioned that about Salah, that he doesn't really have to have a good game when he's in that form and he's that clinical. He'll score a goal out of nothing. And I feel like they're a little bit like that at the moment. They had Jota the first few games that was in form. Salah's been in form for most of the season. Luis Diaz was in form for quite a bit. And then when they're not in form, they bring in someone like Cody Gakpo who scores a couple of goals like he did midweek. So while they're clicking, while they're scoring goals, I think they'll keep winning. But I do expect it to drop off, just not yet. So I've gone 3-1 Liverpool.
The key is, I think, is Brighton, if they get the first goal. In the last 4 games, if Brighton have got the first goal, Liverpool have only won 1. They've drawn 2 and lost 1 as well. So if they do, yeah, it is Ferg time. It's not. It's always Ferg time because they're my universe, So yeah, but yeah, seriously, I think if Brighton get the first goal, then we've definitely got a game on.
Well, do you know what? Firstly, like Dan just said, I don't think we can take any notice of these midweek Carabao Cup games. They're a different proposition altogether, different teams. I mean, for Jesus Christ's sake, Manchester City lost to Tottenham. So the little teams have always got a chance in the Carabao Cup, as was shown this week, yeah? Dal, I think Brighton have got a shout at Liverpool. I really do. By the way, before we go to Dal, isn't that McAllister an annoying little sod, eh? I don't like him at all. I hadn't seen him properly till last week. He is so annoying. Dal, Brighton.
It's funny you say about McAllister. I think Liverpool realised their mistake starting him over Szoboszlai when they played us. I don't think they make the mistake 2 weeks in a row. I really don't. I think Szoboszlai brings much more to their team, and they looked more steady against us when he came on. If this fixture was reversed, I would say Brighton had a chance, but at Anfield, Liverpool get the crowd behind them, be it manufactured or not. They've got a reputation, we'll call it, because it's nothing more than that, of it being a noisy place to go. I do think Brighton will score, but I just think Liverpool are going to have too much for them. I've gone for a 3-1 win on this one, same as Dan.
3-1. Ferg, what did you go for again, please, mate? Sorry.
I went 2-2.
2-2. Do you know what? I've gone for a 2-1 win to Brighton at Liverpool, letting me heart rule my head again. You know what I mean? So, as far as we're concerned, it could go either way. And if you look at both the sides, Brighton and Liverpool, you can make a case for goals being scored at both ends. So, who knows what's going to happen? Right. The next one, right? Forest v West Ham United. Just saying it almost makes me yawn, Just saying Forest v West Ham United almost makes me yawn. Forest have won both their Premier League home games against West Ham, their last 2 seasons. They've beaten West Ham at home. Dal, are Forest going to do it again? Are they going to make it 3 out of 3?
I think so. Obviously, West Ham put the nail in the Ten Hag coffin last week, but I think Forest at home, they're capable of performances. I really do. I think these are the sort of games they should be winning. I know they're doing quite well this season, but for me, these are the games they're going to see as kind of the ones they need to be targeting 3 points, right? When the likes of the Arsenal go there, Liverpool, Cities, there'll be bonus points if they get anything from them. But I think Forest should be targeting a win at West Ham. I do think they will win, and I'm going for a 2-1 Forest win.
Do you know what, Dale? We talked about it last week, didn't we? We said that these teams that are lower in the league, they have their games that they think they should win, must win to stay up, and the games that they might get something out of, and the games that they're going to give it their best shot, but they're not expecting it. And yeah, I sort of see this game that way. Forest, West Ham. West Ham, Dan, you fancied them at the start of the season, didn't you, mate? But they're not doing it, mate, are they?
No, they're not. Look, I do expect them to click. I really do expect them to click because I think they've just bought too well. I think there's too much quality in their squad. And you look at the likes of Bowen, Kudus, and then you've got Paqueta in the middle as well. That's too good not to be playing, to keep playing as they are. But they've come against the Forest side at the minute that look like they don't concede any goals. I think they look like a really good outfit, which I was surprised to see. I'd never expected them to be anywhere near they are now. And when you get a little bit of confidence and you get on a little bit of run like this, sometimes it lasts a lot longer than people expect it to. And, we've seen, I'm not saying they're going to go and win the league like Leicester did, but they could push for a European place and be maybe 7th and get lucky and get something. So if it wasn't for the fact that Forest were at home, I would have probably gone for a Forest win because their away record at the minute has been a lot better this season. Don't concede too many goals and they do nick something on the counter. But Whether it's because they're at home, they have to be the more sort of aggressive and positive team. That's where they maybe struggle because of the quality when they have to break down the team. But I expect a good performance of Forest, and I've gone for 1-1 for that reason.
Right, so Dale's gone for a Forest win. Dan's on the fence. Ferg, what way you falling, mate?
Yeah, I'm going completely opposite the other guys. I think both teams have been quite inconsistent, but have found form of recent times. Like Chris Wood for Forest is doing really, really well. He's stepped into the breach, and Nuno Santos seems to be getting the best out of those players. People weren't, I don't think the Forest fans, and after his time at Tottenham and so on, and even at Wolves, I think his stock had gone down quite a lot, and I think it has risen now.
At Wolves, Ferg?
Yeah,
I thought he did brilliant at Wolves. I thought he's unlucky that
but towards the end, it tainted a bit. I think he did well at Wolves for sure, but towards the end, I think it got tainted. I don't know if it was a relationship with the ownership or whatever it was, but definitely at Spurs, the stock went down. I know there was even links at one point where we thought we could have had him instead of Arteta. But I think West Ham are just starting to find a bit of form. And I thought this one was a West Ham home game when I actually predicted it. So I've gone Forest 2, West Ham 3.
If I can just jump in there very quickly. I mean, firstly, listen, don't you keep chopping me off. You keep chopping me off, I'm going to call you the helicopter. You chop me off.
I'm going to mute you in a
minute. The last 6 games, by the way, in this fixture, the home team has won. So that might be a reason why you predicted it, Ferg. I know you love your Opta stats, but a question for the rest of you. Genuinely, do you rate Nuno as a manager? Because for me, at Wolves, I thought he did a brilliant job. I don't know a single manager, by the way, that's gone to Spurs and really improved his stock as a manager. So I'm not surprised the opinion of him is terrible. But I think he's a good coach.
Dan, if you'd have waited a minute, right? If you waited a minute, I was going to ask you that very question, right? I was going to ask you that very question because Tottenham spoil managers for fun. No manager who's gone to Tottenham have been successful in the last 40 years. You could sort of make a case for Pochettino, but they sacked him, so then you can't make a case for him. All the others, they've ruined them, and they've ruined some great managers. And I think this Forest manager is a great manager. I really like the lad. I think he's all right. And as you say, he did really well at Wolves. He went to Tottenham full of high regard, and Tottenham did what they normally do to managers and battered him into submission. He threw his check. He lost his marbles and left, just like the other lot. Marino lost his marbles and went mad and left. Conte went on telly and went mad and left. They don't just ruin managers, Tottenham. They're close to putting them in mental institutions, I'm sure. They look like they're having breakdowns, these managers, when they leave Tottenham. So anyway, that's me agreeing with you there, Dan. What's the score going to be, mate?
I went for 1-1 for this game. So I can't split him, as I said, but I just genuinely think he's a good coach, and I think what he did at Wolves with the players that he had to sell as well while he was managing them, I think it would do very well at Forest. And an outside opinion at the minute of someone that could get Europe. And by the way, I think a decent club as well. I think Forest as a club are a good club. They've got a fantastic history. I dare enough be outside rooting for them to get there. So hopefully they push for top 7 or 8.
Yeah, well, they're up there, aren't they? But I said at the start of the season I thought West Ham were going to have a bad season, and unlike Dan, so far I've been proved right, And I've had a bit of a soft spot for Forest, and I fancy Forest to nick this by the odd goal. So I've gone 1-0 to Forest, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's not 2-1 or 3-2. But I've gone 1-0 to Forest. So right, the next one on the list then is Southampton v Everton. I like Everton. I've got a soft spot for Everton. I want to see Everton do well. I want to go to their new stadium next year. I want them in the Premier League. I don't want to have to watch games at their new stadium in the Championship. So I want Everton to stay in the Premier League. I want them to get a run of results together. I like Dyche. I think he's probably doing the best that he can with a bad hand there, And I want him to stay up, and I want him to keep his job. So Southampton v Everton. Ferg, we'll go to you first, son.
Southampton winless in 22 games. Only Derby County and Sunderland have had longer runs. I think Sunderland are 32 and 26 and Derby 32. Everton have turned the corner a little bit. They've won the last 5 Premier League. Well, they've gone unbeaten in the last 5 Premier League games, winning 2 and drawing 3. There's, Southampton are a basket case. I think Southampton might as well just start selling championship season tickets now and doing them half price to get some money in.
Don't you mince your words, Ferg, will you?
No, they're absolutely shocking. I feel sorry for this fella behind me because, he's gone to play football and the most he's doing is picking the ball out of the back of the net, not because of his ability, but because of his defence and midfield in front of him. Everton aren't the best side in the league. I think they'll do enough just to stay up because Southampton and Ipswich will probably go down. It's going to be a fight between Leicester, Everton and Wolves for that. Well, Man United getting dragged into that at the minute, but for that relegation battle, those 6 teams are going to fight it out. But I think Ipswich and Southampton are doomed. On that basis, because Southampton are so poor, I've gone a 1-0 away win. And what's Dan typing in the private chat? Because I'm sure he's got. Let's share what he's written in the private chat. Arnie, what's Arnie said?
Arnie's foot, yeah.
You're missing a comment there, mate. There's a question for you. Why have you not emptied it yet?
He did say he's got half hour in it at a minute. He's got about half hour.
I've got another about 10-15 minutes, so we might get like 2 more games in, Annie.
That's hilarious, Arnie. That's hilarious. Listen, boys. So Ferg's gone for an away win for Everton. We haven't had one game where we've all agreed yet tonight, right? We've all had draws and different opinions. Dal, what are you going for, mate? Are you agreeing with Ferg?
I think I'm agreeing exactly with Ferg. I think this is one of those ones where we might all possibly agree on. I don't want Southampton to go down. I don't want Rambo to go down. We all know how much we love Aaron Ramsdale, right? But sadly, he is in a team that are in decline. And we've said it a couple of times. What goes up like a helicopter comes down like a helicopter. I think Southampton are going straight back down. I'm going to agree with Ferg on the season ticket point then. And as Heath says in the chat, Southampton, I think, are dead and buried. Everton know that they don't want to have the best stadium in the Championship, so I think they're going to be going out to win. These are the games they're going to be looking at going, we've got to win this away from home. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Everton.
Right. So right then, before we go to Dan, I'm just going to give you mine because I just about agree with Ferg and Dal, everything they've said. And because I like Everton, I want them to stay up. I love Ramsdale, but we can't help him, I think. I think they've got past it. So I've gone for a 2-1 win for Everton as well. And I'm going to go now to our Dan, who normally disagrees with at least one of us. Is he going to disagree with all 3 of us, or is he joining the ride?
Wait, did Fergus say 2-1 as well?
1-0.
So you've gone 1-0. That's all right then. I'm relieved because I'm not going to agree with Ferg, but I am going to agree with Dal and Trev. So I've actually also gone for an Everton win here. And you know what? We talk about Southampton and conceding goals and feeling sorry for Aaron. I think they've conceded 19 so far in 9 games. It's not the best record, but it certainly isn't the worst. But they've only scored 6 goals. And I think that's where you see teams come up and struggle in that they can't finish their chances and put it to bed. They're coming up against an Everton side that's well drilled by a manager that knows how to defend. I don't really want Everton to win, if I'm totally honest, just for the only reason that their new Senegalese guy, Iliman Ndiaye, they've copied our Gabriel song and they're starting to use it for him. So I'm now a little bit bitter and I don't want them to win for the rest of the season. But I do think they will. I think he's unbeaten in 5 up to Ferg. You might know that stat. I think Everton are unbeaten in the last 5. I expect it to continue against a poor Southampton side. For me, it would be a massive, massive shock if Southampton get anything from this game. They are sitting at the bottom where I think their squad, the quality of their squad shows where they are. Sometimes teams get a bit of fight and they might get the occasional win. I expect them not to be doing too much this season. So unfortunately for Aaron, I think he'll be off in the summer somewhere else. His agent will be flying his helicopter and get him a new move.
Before we move on, Trev, because this is an Arsenal podcast and also we're talking about Everton, our good friend and a friend of the show and an amazing, it's worth it, an amazing player who we lost earlier this year, Kevin Campbell. Let's have a word about Stoke City and they're scummy fans. They're
Don't give
away
them the
fans.
airtime, mate.
No.
Don't give them the
It's
airtime.
their away supporters, the hardcores, people like me, you, all of us that go, and a few of them have to come along and bait Tyrese that way. That is just disgusting.
Look, right. We've got history with Stoke, haven't we, as a football club? It goes back a long way. We've got history with Stoke. And to be honest with you, Ferg, I was a bit like Dale. I wasn't going to even think about it. But since you mention it, mate, and you're right to mention it, by the way, because you have to highlight stuff like this, right? If anyone watching doesn't know what we're talking about, this week, Stoke fans were giving Kevin Campbell's son Tyrese some extreme abuse about his dad dying when Stoke played Sheffield United. And it actually made me feel sick to the bottom of my stomach. And I'd like to think that most Stoke fans aren't like that. You know, I'd like to think that most Stoke fans aren't like that. But unfortunately, there was a few that were, and it was horrible. And they're just a scum of the earth. They're knuckle dragging Neanderthals that don't deserve to be drawing oxygen. Don't deserve to be drawing oxygen.
I was just going to mention actually something that we listened to on the radio on the way home, and they was debating what's the best way of dealing with people and this sort of topic. Because let's be honest, outside of the football, on a human level, you just wouldn't make such comments to any person, because it's just scum of the earth in terms of a comment. People do go to football and think that they can say anything. And I don't know what the way forward is. They were talking about stadium bans. Then they're talking about education and what's needed. I think there's a lot of education needed in football for fans to understand that right and wrong doesn't change when you go to a football game. But I also think I've seen a lot of people get carried away and join on the bandwagon with other people and make mistakes. And that's why I still think education is something that's important, not to just ban people, but to educate and say, do you understand why it's wrong, and try and teach people. But for anyone listening, if you're going to a game and you hear things like this, just don't join in. And I'd probably say go the opposite ends of it, that if we saw someone in that stadium singing that, we would go over to them and say, you're out of order. And
you just
hopefully
think
Stoke fans will do that.
In block 5, if somebody comes like, we're bad enough when somebody comes along and goes, oh, you figure top them. We go, oh, leave it out. We're not playing them. If somebody said something worse than that, you know, and if somebody was saying something nasty like that, and we need to move on because this isn't the whole debate, but I just wanted to raise it more than anything else.
No, you're right, Ferg. Listen, you're right to raise it. I've just been sitting here thinking then about my view that I wasn't going to give them the airtime. And you're right, Ferg. We should highlight these things. You're exactly right, Ferg, and I'm proud of you for saying it, mate. We're just going to let Dale have 10 seconds on it. Then if you don't mind, boys, I'll move it on if that's okay, yeah?
Yeah, also hi to Sophie, who's Kevin's good friend in the chat as well.
Yeah, and it is just a quick 10 seconds because I do want to move on. I think you're right to, but at the same time, I don't want to give them the airtime. But the education piece, these sort of people, they're only sorry when they get caught. They're sorry they get caught. That's all it is. They're trying to show off in front of their friends and people at the stadium, and a few join in. Education doesn't help these people. It really doesn't. I can't see kind of how you solve it until people start standing up for themselves and their fan base within the ground themselves. Stoke City should have had fans nearby, and I don't know if they did or not, but the fans sitting nearby should have sat there and said something to them, but they didn't. Like you say, if it happens in block 5, we do. We don't allow stuff like that to happen, regardless.
Look, right. For people that don't know, thank you, Del, by the way. Hybrid squad there, that's Sophie, who's a very, very good friend of Kevin. And like us, loved Kevin. We all love Kevin Campbell. We loved him for many reasons, not just because of what he did on a football field, which was exceptional, by the way. There's not many players can play for Arsenal, Everton, Nottingham Forest, West Brom, and be a hero at all 4 of them clubs and still be cheered when you go back to them 4 clubs. That's the stature of the man we're talking about here. He was an exceptional human being who used to take time to talk to Fergus and myself about the planning of podcasts, invited me onto his little YouTube channel a couple of times, and I was truly humbled by the man. And I'm going to grieve him for the rest of the days. And I'm going to finish it by saying, You'll see it at nearly every away game this year. You'll certainly see it in European games. You'll see it on our social media. There's a flag with Kevin Campbell on, right?
I'll get a photo in a second.
It says Super Kevin Campbell. And that's us. But that's not just us. That's the Arsenal fans. Every Arsenal fan I've seen and spoken to me about it has said, wow, thank you for bringing that flag. And we're going to take it everywhere. And I'm sorry we can't keep on talking about it forever. There it is. It humbles me looking at it. It humbles me looking at it. We love you, Kev. And we will always be louder than the scum that was at Stoke. We will always be louder. All right. Anything else from any of you other boys? Because it's an important point. Have we covered off our respect there for Kev?
I think we have. Kev. I just think for our fan base, right? We're a club that's always shown class, and for any of our fans watching, don't make the same mistakes. Like we can't change other people. We can change ourselves and make sure that we stick to our classy sort of history and keep going that way.
We've been instructed by Sophie. Move on. Newcastle, 3 points. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, we can't talk about Newcastle yet because we've got to talk about Wolves v Crystal Palace. And I looked at the first stat for this, right? And the last 6 games between Wolves and Crystal Palace at Molineux, 3 of them have been won by Wolves by 2 goals or more. 3 of them have been won by Palace by 2 goals or more. So we could have goals coming out of our ears here. Wanderers v Palace. We'll ask Dan first. Dan, who's winning this one, son?
Well, I don't know if you'll notice in our podcast where we put all the scores, I did change mine this week before we come on, and I had a little change of this result. This was the one I changed. I'd originally gone for a draw, but there's a little bit of news that I'd heard that apparently Eze may not be fit. So I've changed to a Wolves win. I think Palace, for me, are still a good side. And I think they will click. But without Eze in that team, they don't have much creativity. I like Mateta up front. I think he's a handful. I think he runs in behind. He's not fantastic with the ball at his feet, but the players that link with him and play with him, he's a big part of that squad. And they lose a lot when Eddie plays instead of him. But they haven't got a guy to replace Eze. And they could have got away with it last year when they had Elise that can make something out of nothing. But they're relying so much this year on Eze. And without him, I really, really worry for Palace. Then on the flip side, Wolves have not been getting the results, but their performances definitely warrant a lot more than what they've had. And, that game against Man City being one of them. And they are definitely due a couple of good results. So I think at home with a pretty decent crowd at Wolves, their fans are always pretty loud and always back their team. I think this is probably the game for them that they're going to get a win.
Who?
Wolves 2-1. I've gone for.
Yeah. Well, you made a really important point there, Dan, and we spoke about it last week, didn't we, mate? When I felt that Wolves, I think they've been playing all right, but they've had absolutely no luck this season. That's the way I see Wolves. Ferg, how do you see it, mate?
Well, Wolves were winless in 9. Palace can't score for love nor money. I think they scored the fewest goals of any side this season. 6, scored 6, conceded 11. It's 5:30 on a Friday. On a Saturday. I think what you should do is just turn the telly off, spend some time with your loved ones, have a takeaway, couple of drinks, put the fire on, get ready for a film, because you're not going to miss nothing if you don't watch this game. It's a 0-0 snore draw.
Oh, so you're not keen on this game then, Ferg? I take it.
No, not really.
I'd have never guessed in a million years. Dal, do I sense any more excitement about this game in you, mate?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit more than that. I'm going to go with the draw. I am, but my reasoning behind that is
stop.
What time is it?
For those on audio only, it's bag emptying time for Ferg. So Ferg has left us for a minute, but he can still hear what we're saying, and that's why we talk like this about him, because we know he's got his earphones in. Sorry, Dal, I cut you off there, mate. Come on, talk to us.
Nah, no worries at all. Absolutely no worries. Palace, yeah, I get what you're saying about Palace. I really do, but they are capable of results. I mean, they only they only just lost 1-0 to Liverpool at home. They beat Tottenham the other week as well, so they have got a result in them. Let's not forget as well, they beat Aston Villa midweek. I know it's the League Cup, but they are capable of pulling these results off, and that's just in the last 5 or 6 games. So we talk about Wolves not having a bit of luck, but Palace have had a little bit of luck against them as well. You mentioned the last 6 games, kind of someone winning by 2 goals, and someone put it in the chat actually, and that was my prediction. If you remember back, I think Adam mentioned it, Arnie mentioned it, and I'm going to do it as well. I'm going to go 2-2 here. I think we're on a. Here he is. Welcome back, Ferg. And I'm going to go, as Ray Parler would call it, a Desmond. We're going to go for a Desmond 2-2 on this.
I'll tell you what, that change.
Hang on a second. We're talking about Prediction League. I think next week what we should is have the minute of the podcast that I need to go have a wee, because it's clearly becoming a topic.
Hey, that bag change, mate, was Formula 1 speed. That was on and off in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not good at this.
It's a bit more exciting than talking about that game, wasn't it, Ferg? That's what it was.
A quick question after Ferg, just to ask you guys, but come back to me after.
Well, I'm just going to stick my 10-penny in here. I think that Palace are playing a bit better. I didn't realise Eze was out, to be honest, but they got a result last week, and I think they're going to get a result this week. I think Wolves' bad luck might continue. It's going to be one of them seasons for them, and I've got Palace to nick a little 2-1 win. Now, do you want to come back before I move on to the next game, Daniel, my son?
Yes, a real quick one. I was going to ask you guys why you think it's not clicked yet for Palace, because you look at their team on paper.
Eddie.
That's bad. That's
could
bad.
be the reason. Who knows? But you look at their team, right? There's quality in that team, and even without Eze, right? Eze is 100% their star man, but Mateta I really rate. Eddie, look, he wasn't good enough for the Arsenal, but he's not a bad player.
He should be good enough for that level.
But the rest of their team, Ferg, Ismail Assar as a winger that's going to come in for Eze, most probably. Great player. They're 2 fullbacks, right? Munoz and Mitchell, brilliant Premier League level fullbacks for their level. Daichi Kamada in the middle, I really, really rate him. Did great in the German league, and I think he's really hit the ground running and adapting to the Premier League. And even the guys at the back, the likes of Trevor Chalobah that played for Chelsea, you've got Mike Gahey that plays for them. They've got a very, very good squad. But there's just something
I
missing.
think it's the Elise going to Munich. The Elise is a pairing. That was what made them and then Meta could come in, Mateta or whatever his name could come in and so on. But that losing Elise, and I don't think it's quite clicking with the manager.
Well, I was just going to say that, Ferg. I couldn't name all them players at Palace. You know what I'm like. I can name the Arsenal team, and I probably know.
Just about to say my name.
I know one player at every other club. But if they've got all them decent players and they've got that quality in their side, but it's not clicking, as Ferg just said, do you look towards the manager and the coaching staff? Is it their system?
David Moyes to Palace. You heard it here first.
Yeah. What changed from last year, though? Because when this manager came in last season, he completely changed that club and their form picked up. And since game 1 of this season, just hasn't worked out the same. I'm just very, very surprised with how they ended last season to how they've started. And the only difference really is Elise.
Yeah, fair enough.
Wharton's out. Let's not forget Wharton in the middle of the park for him. He's also injured.
Yeah. Well, they will use your play, but yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised. I'd say I'm surprised more so with Palace than I am with West Ham.
For a game that inspired Fergus to say 2 words, we've spent quite a bit of time talking about it. But we're going to move on now, right? We're going to move on to probably the most boring game of the weekend. It's Tottenham v Aston Villa. Tottenham got beat last week, didn't they, by Palace?
I want to take credit for that.
Villa are flying.
No, hang on. I want to take credit for that, for Spurs winning.
I'm coming back to you on this, Ferg. I'm coming back to you on this. I know you put a kiss of death on them. I know you put a kiss of death on them, Ferg. That still doesn't mean you're forgiven, son. You still
Can Ferg go last now? Can Ferg go last? Because I know he's dead.
Order. Bang out of order. But Spurs v Villa. Villa are flying, right? I love Emery. I love what he's doing. I love the fact that he's charging in the Champions League, because I know it does Dan's head in, right? So I think they're going to come out this week and play really well against Tottenham, and they're going to turn them over. Dal, tell me what's going to happen, mate.
Spurs are going to go 1-0 up, think they've won it, think they're going to go all over it and take the 3 points, but then Villa are going to score twice and Spurs are going to lose 2-1 at home. I think we said earlier, can we agree on results tonight? I'm hoping this is one we all agree on as well. But on a serious note, though, I think Villa have got too much for them. I really do. Villa have had a fantastic squad this season. Emery's got them ticking. He's got them purring. They've made the right additions. They're top of the Champions League. Let's not forget. Whilst them lot down the road can only dream of the Champions League. So for me, I do think Spurs will score because they're at home, but I'm going for a 2-1 Villa win.
Listen, Dal. Villa are a damn fine side, right? Even though they're playing Champions League and Premier League, some people said that they thought it'd be too much for them. I can't remember who actually said it now, but somebody put some doubt in my mind about it being too much for them.
I think it was me, actually.
I've got to go right now, right, to last week's traitor and ask him what he thinks this week's score is going to be. Fergus, say your piece, my son.
Well, I deserve credit from last week because I did predict that against Crystal Palace, who I think are a poor side, that the unwashed would get a result. And what I've done is Eddie and probably Rob Holding in the dressing room, like sitting there with his flip flops on and like cleaning up all the bandages and everything else, got behind the team and motivated them, and they lost. Palace won. Sorry, I'm waffling. What's new? Tottenham have lost 9 of the last 16 games. Previously, in the previous 31, they'd only lost 7. The wheels are falling off for Angie. I don't know. I think Unai Emery will be motivated, not necessarily because he likes Arsenal, but he understands the rivalry. Ollie Watkins will definitely be motivated. He's going to get the winner. It's 3-2, an away win to Villa.
Way! I'm over the moon with that, folks. I'm over the moon with that.
I hope
Dan,
I haven't jinxed it.
Just before I come to you, Dan, right? Just want to chuck another little one at you, mate. I think that Tottenham have underperformed for Postecoglou, like they underperformed for their last few managers, right? So tell us what you think the score's going to be. But I just want you to tell me at the start your view, and you other two lads can come in as well. Is Postecoglou out of his depth in the Premier League?
I don't think he's out of his depth in the Premier League. I think he's out of his depth at a club that, for me, don't underperform, that they perform at their level. That is what they are as a club. And this is completely rivalry aside, right? I've always looked at that squad and said, it isn't good enough. There's a belief in that team that they can, on their day, perform well. And they absolutely can. They've got enough quality to beat big teams occasionally, right? You only got to see the games that they played at home to Man City at times. They have quality on their day, but top level footballers are consistent, and they don't have consistency. And that's why all of these comments about their defence being as good as Arsenal's, etc. Romero loses his head every now and again. He can play 9 out of 10 and be brilliant, but there'll always be that one that he loses his head. The midfield guys don't have enough quality to compete at this level for me. They're a mid-table pairing. They're 2 central midfielders. A doggy, I call him a dog shit because I think he's awful. And then you've got another one in Pedro Porro who can't defend. He might as well play right wing. So I don't think at all that he's out of his depth in the Premier League. I actually think he's a decent manager, if I'm honest. I think the Spurs fans calling for his head don't know how good things are with him. He's the first Spurs manager I've seen in many, many years that has actually spoke a little bit of sense to that fan base and said, stop thinking about Arsenal. You're too het up on a rivalry, and that being your be all and end all of your season. If you want to be a big club, you have to go and win things, and you have to think about each game, and a win against Villa is no different to a win against Arsenal for Spurs in terms of points and achieving what they want. But that fan base and their mentality and the mentality of the owners won't change at the minute. So for me, absolutely not. The club is where they deserve to be. He probably deserves better as a manager. If I'm coming back to this game, Spurs have got a few little injuries as well. Son, I think, is potentially out. Van der Ven picked up an injury. I don't know if Romero had a knock. If their 2 centre-halves are out, for me, it's just a case of how many Villa will win by, not just a win. So 100% for me, a Villa win. I'm going for 2-1 to Aston Villa.
Yeah.
Dan mentioned... sorry, Trev, go on.
Well, yeah, I'm going to come back to you now, Dal, because I just want to spend another couple of minutes on this game. Look, Postecoglou is going to lose his rags soon enough, isn't he? But Tottenham, they haven't got the quality of players. Players like Van der Ven, Maddison, they're only at Tottenham because none of the big teams wanted them. If a Liverpool or a Real Madrid or a Chelsea or an Arsenal or a Man City had come calling, do you think Maddison or Van der Ven would be at Tottenham? Of course they wouldn't be at them there. It's just like we were a few years ago. We couldn't get the big players because we weren't performing to that level. You know, they're in a lot of trouble, Tottenham, and I know it's because I quite revel in it because they are our rivals, but I honestly think they're in trouble, and I think that Villa are going to win 3-1. Could be more. Dal.
Going back to the manager out of his depth. How many managers have gone into that lot down the road and thought, good managers, not people who are there on a whim. There's a lot of good managers gone into that club thinking they can turn it around. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes there, but every one of those managers, as Dan said, who goes to that club and comes out in a better position than what they're in? They spend a lot of money as well on bang average players. You look at what they spent on the likes of Maddison, what they spent on the likes of Richarlison. They just seem to waste money. They look at a big name. Maddison was everybody thought was a decent player. People comparing him to Odegaard. I remember seeing Arsenal fans going, "Oh yeah, he's that sort of player." He really isn't. And it's the mentality. I think very similar to United, it runs deeper than what's on the pitch.
When he's on form, actually, and the first half against Brighton, I thought, and when they signed Maddison, I thought they'd got a great player there. And I thought, oh, Jesus, they could do something. But you just look briefly on this.
Ferg, just before, wait, I want you to, briefly, but sum it up, mate. We're going to move on after you've had this.
Yeah. I was just going to say, how many of Spurs players will get into the Villa side? Probably, and we don't have to go through them, but probably 4 or 5 at tops, and that's because Villa still are developing squad, and there's some journeymen like McGinn and so on who are at the end of their career at Villa. But the majority of those Spurs players, and this is where I think Dan had a point about Spurs are in trouble. They're on the football's a cycle, and they're on the way back down again.
Yeah, and they didn't get very high in the first place. Look, boys, I've just looked at the clock. We've been going for an hour and 2 minutes again. Where does the time go? So, briefly, boys, Man United v Chelsea. I'm going to give it straight away. I think that Chelsea will be too good for Man United. I don't care if Man United have got a new manager or not. I think Chelsea are going to win 2-0 at Man United. Ferg, tell me.
More draws than anything in these in the last these fixtures in the Premier League. I think there's 26 out of 64. And that's been said, I think Chelsea, as I said earlier on, are one of the surprise teams of this Premier League. I think Horseface, he got a result in Europa League, in the Carling Cup, but I think Chelsea are going to be too good for them. It's going to be 3-1, sadly, to Chelsea. I want about 55-0 to both sides. I hate them. So that's a Chelsea win. Dal, give us your score, mate.
I think both are still quite poor at the back. I can see, is that Trev gone to empty his bag? I didn't even know he had a bag.
I think it is,
off he goes. Just me and you, Dan, holding everybody up here. So, I do think United are going to want to go out on a bang. I don't know who's in charge, be it Van Nistelrooy or the new guy. It's probably going to be Ruud van Nistelrooy.
New guy's not allowed for the international break.
Yeah, so Ruud van Nistelrooy, he's United at heart. He knows exactly what it takes. He's going to want to go out with a bang, but I do think Chelsea are not going to let that happen. So I'm going to go for a draw, a score draw. I'm going to go 2-2.
Right, Dan, wrap it up, son.
This is a difficult one to wrap up in 2 seconds, because I think to not talk about their new manager at United is doing them a disservice, because I think Man United...
We've got a few weeks before he comes into play. There's 2 or 3 more games.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick then, but I think he's a really, really good appointment, by the way. I think of one of the most underrated managers that's done a brilliant job at Sporting since he's come in. I think he'll give United a lift, and I think even if he's not come in yet...
Trevor had a bucket in the corner.
Totally unprofessional, you lot. Totally unprofessional.
I can't believe you thought
well done, Jeff.
I can't believe you thought that even. Right, sorry, go on. Before we were
I think a really good appointment. I think he'll pick United up. I think United, you talk about underperforming squad. Man United's squad is underperforming more than anyone else in this league at the minute. They have enough quality in that team, but for me, that team just didn't want to perform for the manager. So regardless of whether they fly any manager in his helicopter before or after this game, for me, big lift Man United. I'm expecting Man United to win this game at home. I think that crowd will be as loud as you've heard it all season. And I've gone 2-1 to United.
Wow, right. Completely different views then. But Fergus, you mentioned Van Nistelrooy, yeah? And I had to get up and get it. This come out this week, right? Martin Keane Owen's new book, right? I've not started reading it yet. But the back cover of this book, right? I've never seen a back cover make me want to read a book more. I don't know if you can see that, right?
That's got to be his statue one day, hasn't it?
Look at that. No regrets, he's put at the top there. No regrets. What I'm going to read about in the book, I don't know. Because as I said, I'm still reading a different book. I've not had a chance to start yet. But I'm looking forward to reading that one. Very much looking forward to it. Right, listen, we've got one more second-rate game to talk about, boys. And then we're going to talk for a little while about, not for long, but a little while about the best game. I'm looking forward to this game, Fulham v Brentford. I can make a case for either of these teams winning. Been thinking about it for an hour when I was doing my notes this afternoon. Fulham can win it because of this. Yeah, but Brentford to do this, I can't split them, me. And I'm going to give you my score straight away. I can't see this being anything other than a draw. I've gone Fulham 1, Brentford 1. Who do we go? Dale, we'll go to you first, mate. Go.
To get to the point, mine is exactly the same as yours. I can't see anybody taking anything here. I think both teams will go for it. I think both teams are capable of the win. But I think because of that, they'll cancel each other out. And I'm going to agree with Trev on this one. Bang on the money, 1-1.
Dan.
I've gone Fulham to win, to be honest. I keep saying this, different side at home compared to away. And it seems the same for Brentford. So you've got a team that can play at home and not away, and another team that can play home and not away. So for me, I can't look beyond a Fulham win. Brentford, great side, but Fulham on their day, enough quality in that team to win. So I've got 2-1.
I can understand that, Dan. I really can. Ferg, we've got Fulham in a few weeks, about the same time of the season as we got beat there last season.
Yeah.
So I want to see him at a bit of a bad run of form, Ferg. What do you reckon?
Well, Fulham unbeaten in I've lost the stat on there. Jesus, Dan, you're moving my screen around, aren't you? Unbeaten in 5 Premier League London derbies. But that being said, Fulham don't like playing on Mondays. They are the Boomtown Rats. On that basis, this London derby is going to finish. Brentford are going to win 2-1.
Wow. So as we said right at the start, you can look at Brentford v Fulham from all sorts of angles and come up with all different results, and it's all a believable scenario. So who knows what's gonna happen.
That's why I'm the Fergus bottom of the league, so I'm not having that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mind. I enjoy it.
Right. Boys, listen, the greatest game of football of the weekend we're going to talk about now. I've got an alarm set for 4:30 in the morning. I've still not recovered from getting home from Preston yesterday. And then I'm going to get back from Newcastle tomorrow night very, very late and set off on Monday for the airport. It's non-stop, this football supporting game. By the way, I'm not moaning. I'm loving every minute of it, but I am getting too old and I am knackered. Arsenal at Newcastle, right? We've been up and down there in the last few years, and we've had some good results and we've had some poor results. Their crowd has a massive input. If I remember rightly, last year we quietened their crowd right down. The year before, their crowd had took over and just lifted their team to a win, I'm sure. So we're not just playing Newcastle, we play the crowd. We hope we can quieten them down. Very interesting game. Very important game for the Arsenal. Ferg, we're coming to you first, son. How's it going to go?
I think Dan's going to be drunk before he gets there. He's on a 7:30 train from Euston. You'll be drunk before you even wake up this morning, Trevor. I think how it's going to go. You're going to get a lift. Dan's going to run up the stairs as he did the last time, showing off and everything else. I don't know. Newcastle, they don't have as many games to play as we have. They won midweek against Chelsea in the League Cup. I'm sure they made loads of changes. We don't have Odegaard back. We don't have Calafiori back, but we do have Saliba. I think we'll have enough. I think it's going to be hard. I think we'll score first. They'll come back at us, but we'll finish it 3-1.
Do you know what? It's interesting you say about scoring first. It's really interesting because It wasn't so long ago we'd take a 1-0 lead and I think we won't hang on here. We don't hang on to leads. But now we've got our defensive partnership out, and I do think that our central defensive partnership are the most important two players in our team. Maybe not singularly, but as a partnership, as a pair working together. Every team that's got a pair of centre backs that understands each other and play like Gabriel and Saliba do is always going to have a chance. So I think if Gabriel's fit tomorrow, Saliba plays, I think we'll be all right too, Ferg. I think we can go there and get a win. Dal, I'm going to come to you, mate. Do you agree or disagree?
I completely agree, and it's one of those games where I very rarely get to come away with you guys. So to come tomorrow, I am absolutely like a kid at Christmas. This is my Christmas Eve today. Yeah, I'm on the same train as you, Trev. It gets in at 9:39. I'm praying Dan's train's all right because I'm meeting him there to get my ticket. So if not, Dan, make sure you do book that helicopter, mate, and make sure you're there on time. So there we go. But, yeah, honestly, I'm like a kid at Christmas. I don't know if I'll be in with you, Trev, because I think you're first class. You're going posh, aren't you? So while Dan's over there in his helicopter, you'll be sitting in first class, snooting up with a glass of wine. But yeah, I'd love to see Wanyeri start. I really would. I think he's earned his start. I think he deserves a start. I think whilst Odegaard's still out, there's an opportunity for him to start. I'd love to see it. And I think the first goal in this is massive because if that crowd gets behind them, I've never done it live, but I've seen it on TV. And that crowd can be brutal. That crowd can be vicious. So putting an early dagger in them is really going to set the tone. I'm going to go for an Arsenal win. I'm going to go 3-1 to the Arsenal.
Yeah, I can see it happening. And Dale, you're right. We can't talk enough about that crowd up at Newcastle. I'd never seen them ever silenced before, like we silenced them last season. And it absolutely made a difference. I'm going to come to you now, Dan, just to finish off this first round of chats about the Arsenal. And Nwaneri's been in the chat. Dale's mentioned Wanyeri. We saw him live against Preston. I thought he played really well against Preston. Is he ready yet to just take a step into that first team as a starter? But I'm just going to stick a little proviso on the back of that. Firstly, is he good enough to be in as a starter? And if he is, who would you put? If you had to choose between Jesus, Sterling, and Wanyeri, who are you putting in, Dan?
Well, there's lots to talk about. Firstly, I've just clocked. I think Dale's got an obsession with helicopters, mate. I reckon he's probably just bought a new helicopter toy set or something. And he's
or else you've been to see the Magic Mike.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, talking of helicopters, we probably need a helicopter to get us all the way up to the top of that away end tomorrow. That's the biggest thing. So maybe Trev's.
I'm coming in your helicopter.
I've got a bad leg already. My bad leg's developing nicely now. I'll be in the lift, boys.
Yeah, but look, firstly, I'm a little surprised with some of the words that you use, Trev, and I don't know if I've just picked up on the wrong thing, but you guys said, I can't remember who it was, if it was you and Dale or just yourself, but you said, I think we can get a win here. That sounds like there's a little bit of doubt, and I've got absolutely no doubt about this game tomorrow. And I'll tell you the reason why. I understand doubt normally go into this place because it's a difficult place to go, and when their fans get up, it makes it a very, very hard place to go. I think they've dropped off a little bit, and I think maybe the ownership of when they took over, the buzz that they had around them, I think that's died down a lot. And I think that makes a big difference now when you go to St. James's Park. And horribly, I'm going to agree with Fergus. The first goal is massively important because we don't want to give them that buzz again to pick them back up. But they've got quite a few defensive injuries, the same as we have, but they haven't got the quality to step in that we have. And I think that's going to be the difference for us tomorrow, if I'm honest. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a nice win, actually. I think it'll be a big confidence boost for us going into the Milan game and the Chelsea game. I think we need a little bit of a pick-up because of the last couple of Premier League games, but I expect us to have it. One thing I would say is I don't want to see Wanyeri starting. And for me, look, he's done fantastic in the games he's played. Let's just not put pressure on him, right? Give him another season or two, and he will come in. Hang on, Fergus, stop me off. I mean, I'm going to call you Helicopter Ferg now. Listen,
yeah,
give him his time. His time, his time will come, right? His time will come, but we don't need to rush him. At the minute, for me, the one thing of many that I love about Arteta, but one of the main things I love with him is he trusts his senior member of his squad to make the difference, and he may have a smaller group of them, But Trossard is the next guy that comes into that team without a doubt when Ødegaard's not there and he plays that number 10 role. And this isn't the game to go and try and rotate and give people their sort of first away game like that in the Premier League, like start. Stick with what we know has worked. Trossard's done brilliant in that role since Ødegaard's been away. Saka's nailed on the right wing. Martinelli needs a bit of a confidence boost still, but for me, nailed on the left. Havertz up top. And the rest of the team picks itself. So it's going to be a nice win. I've gone 2-0 tomorrow, but let's not overthink the team selection.
Right.
Do you not think...
wait a minute, Dale.
Arteta's considering...
Wait a minute, because I'm going to shout at him now. You know what I mean? Don't cut me off mid-shout. Listen.
Helicopter Trev.
Saying I think we'll get a win up there, how is that not positive? I think we can get a win at Newcastle. How is that not positive? You know what you do, Daniel, my son? You just look for a little fault to pick, didn't you? Because you think you're going to chuck a line out and reel this in. Well, next time you do it, I'm going to mute you because I've gone right off you tonight. Right off you. Ferg, you were going to put Dan in his place, mate, and he cut you off. What was you going to say, mate?
I was I can't remember exactly. I think it was on I was agreeing with you on Nwaneri. What was it I piped up on, Dan? I can't remember.
Most things, mate.
Yeah, I know.
You agreed with Dan that you wouldn't rush him in because I think
I wouldn't rush him in. Look, you could see him on midweek. He was cramping up in the end. He asked, I think it was Havertz or something like that, stretch out his hamstring because he was cramping up. The kid's a good kid. He's absolutely amazing to watch on Wednesday night, and I like when he's come on. I just really don't want people to. I think that the pressure people are going. He's got to start. Just trust Arteta. He's got most things right. Just trust Arteta. I think he's fine.
Listen,
I'm not saying I don't trust Arteta, but what I'm saying is Arteta sees what we see. It's there for all to see.
He sees
if
more.
He's ready to. No, I agree. But if he's ready to play in the Champions League, which he has been, if he's ready to play and come on in the league against the likes of Liverpool, which he has been, and Russ hits the nail on the head. I don't think Trossard has been the same player through the 10. I really don't. And you know my thoughts on Trossard.
Trossard isn't as good as Ødegaard in the 10, but Trossard has done a good job in the 10. Trossard is a better player coming on. He's playing over where on the same side as Martinelli. He's better as an impact sub. Martinelli's a better starter. And finally, Trev, and I understand your frustration, as me and Dan said. No. I can understand you trying to move it along, but we're saying stuff. Dan and I were speaking in the car, and Dan even said that Martinelli will struggle to get in the side next season at his current performances.
Yeah, look, right. Let's just go over. Let me just recap on Nwaneri for me, because what Dan said is exactly right. Right, Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, and Trossard. If them four start up the top of the field for us tomorrow, I have absolutely no problem with it. Absolutely no problem with it. Although Martinelli is still missing chances. He's put a lot of chances when he's been through, cutting and gone onto his right foot. He's putting a lot of chances over the bar this year. He's hitting them high for some reason. I've noticed it quite a bit. But nevertheless, we know he's going to come good. So as I just said, if he starts Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, and Trossard up front, I've got no problem with that at all. No problem. But if he leaves Martinelli out or he leaves Trossard out and puts him on the bench and puts Nwaneri in, I've got no problem with that either. I trust the manager to do what he's got to do.
Question for you: would you be surprised if Nwaneri started?
Yes, I would. Yeah. I think there's horses for courses. Maybe away at Newcastle might not be the right course for the horse. But look, boys. I've gone, by the way, for a 3-1 win for the Arsenal tomorrow. I think if we score first, we won't get caught. I think that just about sums it up tonight, boys. I've had a wonderful chat. These prediction podcasts, we don't get quite as many viewers as we do for the Monday night show, but we're going up nicely, and we've got well over 200 people watching us live now. If you can pop over to YouTube, if you're not already on YouTube, and just give us a like and a subscribe. Costs you nothing, makes us nothing, just helps us with a little bit that we do behind the scenes for this show. It would be very much appreciated. I love your company. If you're joining us for the first time tonight, you probably realise we're just 4 Arsenal fans. We're not professional media people. We do this and we do it because we love it and we love each other, although we do bicker like mad. We terribly bicker. You know,
7 hours in a car with somebody.
Yeah. But I had an hour and a half going down to Bournemouth. That was more than enough. Thank you. Look, boys, I'm new to this presenting bit. Right, I'm loving every second of having a bit of control. Dan's got the ump.
I've got the ump because I said to Fergus, "Can I ask a question?" And he said no privately in the chat, so I'm just going to sit here and sulk.
All right, go on then, Dan. Ask a question.
I'm not allowed.
All right, then you can't. Ferg, I'm going to leave it over to you, mate, because you're better at this than me. Press that button. Let's get.
Back to you, Trev.
I wondered if you ever would come back to me there, Ferg. I wasn't expecting the full version, the full episode of Top of the Pops. I thought we were just having North London forever. All right, one important point I forgot to talk about: Anthony Gordon. Is it Claire Balding or is it Anthony Gordon? Anyway, I don't know if he's still out injured, but I think
You can tell us Friday.
he makes a difference. Yeah, do you know what? You can tell he's emptied his bag. He's bouncing around again like a 4-year-old. Look.
I was feeling quick.
Look, right. We're Dal. What's your name? Dan. I'll see you both tomorrow. Fergus, I know we'll probably, unfortunately, have to talk to you at some stage tomorrow. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. I'm truly humbled, but I'm going to let Fergus do what he always does and have the last word.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining. As Trevor said, jump over to YouTube, click like and subscribe. It does help us out. We'd like to get to a level where we can get a couple of quid coming in, but there we go. Guys, have a great trip. Enjoy yourself. I'll be sitting in my local pub, recovering and recuperating from a long week at work and a lot of driving, and I might partake in a shandy or 7. Up the Arsenal, fuck the Spurs.
Thanks for listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons or Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too. Up the Arsenal.